You are now listening to Mondays with Mike Martinez.
Hey guys, welcome back to another exciting episode of Mondays with Mike. If you've been following me for a while, you already know this very familiar face, very good friend of mine, my man Nick Perry. Nick, I'm gonna let you introduce yourself. What business do you run? And let's talk a little bit about where you were raised, bro. How was your upbringing? And let's get started with that.
Yeah, no, first of all, thank you for having me on. Always honored to hang out with Mike Martinez, one of my favorite people in the world. So appreciate that. But I run a business. I run a few businesses. The main business that I'm known for is my real estate wholesaling business, Want to Sell Now. And I have a training and education program called 7-Figure and 8-Figure Cartel. I own a couple other businesses, but I'll keep it short. I originally grew up in Northern Virginia, right outside of DC. Broke, busted, disgusted, had nothing to my name, and it's been a journey to this point.
That's right. So do you come from a family of money? We have a lot of different entrepreneurs that come onto the show, all walks of life. So people want to know, did you have that privilege of growing up with money? Was it, what was that like for you?
No, I mean, quite the opposite. So my mom, I had divorced parents. So my mom and my stepdad, they raised me until I was about 12 or 13. Then my mom couldn't handle me anymore, and she gave me over to my dad. So my mom and my stepdad, they were middle class. My stepdad was in the CIA. So I grew up in like a strict CIA household. And, we lived in a $150,000 house that, was 3 bedrooms, 1,500 square feet, nothing special. And, my being government worker, there was never really any extras to go around. It was just your typical lower middle class America, right?
Gotcha, yeah.
I didn't know any different. I didn't think I was rich or poor. I just kind of felt like I was in the middle. And then when I went to go live with my dad, when I was 13, there's a stark contrast. My dad was a landscaper. So he didn't make much money. He lived in an old 1950s 1-bedroom apartment in the hood. It was like, we lived in the suburbs, but he lived in the worst part of the suburb, right? Place was falling down, infected with cockroaches, smelled like propane and gasoline all the time. And I slept on the couch, and he had the bedroom. And when he would go to the grocery store, when he got paid every 2 weeks, that was it. So we couldn't grocery shop again until he got paid again. So if we went to grocery shop Friday, he got paid. Sometimes food would be out on Tuesday. And I was like, you gotta figure it out. We gotta wait.
From what age? From 13, 14?
So it was like the Kendrick Lamar, like syrup sandwiches and, grams allowance. That was the real stuff. And so, I got in a lot of trouble because my dad was working all the time, trying to did the best he could for me, but he just couldn't provide. And so, I started hanging out with the wrong crew. Got in a lot of trouble growing up, doing all the teenager stuff, underage drinking, fighting, breaking into cars, selling little peddly drugs here and there. But I realized nobody was coming to save me. Like, the fact was, I didn't come from rich parents. I didn't have a rich uncle. And the only person that was going to make this any different was myself. So at 14 years old, as soon as I could start working, I went to work, bagging groceries at the supermarket. That was my first job, making $6 an hour. I did that. Then I went to work at the dollar store and crushed it at the dollar store. I worked there every day after school. I would go to work. And then I got a job at a cell phone store. That was my first sales job. And I was 15. And I went to work there. And I remember I was working there for a couple of months. And I was actually like moving some cell phones. And the manager had to go on maternity leave. And they said, hey, Nick, we want to promote you to manager now. But it's full-time, 40 hours a week. They thought I was 18, but I was only 15. And so they offered me the job, 18 an hour with commission. And I had to make the decision. I was like, am I going to keep working? Or am I going to keep going to school? Or am I going to go to work? And I was like, screw school. I was checked out in the 3rd grade.
Yep.
And so I went to work, worked at that cell phone store for a couple more years, worked in a call center when I was like 17, 18.
What kind of call center?
It was, we were reloading prepaid gift cards or reloading gift cards is what we're doing. So it was more a customer service role.
No, it was in telemarketing.
No,
you were getting incoming calls and convincing, or just like customer service.
Customer
right?
service.
Gotcha.
But I was in a cubicle call center. And then when I was 18, I decided, I was always into fitness, working out. Working out is really what saved me. When I was a teenager, being in those times, I was depressed, hated my life, had a lot of bad thoughts at that time. I was confused, hanging around the wrong crew, and working out is what got me back to feeling like myself. I'll tell you a story that not a lot of people share, but I think a lot of people will resonate with. Was like, in the 90s when I grew up, my mom, she tried to do her best, but she put me in. The teachers were like, this kid can't pay attention. So what did she do? Took the teacher's advice, and they're like, go get this kid tested for ADHD. Take him to a shrink. So they loaded me up on a bunch of pills, put me on Ritalin, Wellbutrin, Adderall, and before you know it, I was on a cocktail of drugs. And I was on that, prescription cocktail from like the time I was maybe like 8 years old to the time I was like 14 when I moved to my dad's. And I was like, no more of this shit. Like, I'm not taking this stuff anymore. And I got myself in the gym. All the mental fog lifted. I started having a little bit more clarity, respect for myself. And the gym gave me that discipline and structure to, pull myself out of that dark hole when I was young.
So I want to pause really quick so that people understand the trend that's going around right now, where they see entrepreneurs, they start making a lot of money, they start becoming millionaires, they start becoming successful multimillionaires, and all of a sudden focused on fitness. So Nick is not a fitness coach right now, right? He's not. That's not what he does. But right now he's talking about his journey and how fitness really directly impacted his positive mindset.
I would be dead or in jail if I didn't make that decision to take my health and fitness seriously.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's really aligned. Your ambition and the hustle and the drive that you have and the thoughts that you get to be successful, like financially.
Absolutely.
So it's important that people understand that, bro.
Yeah. The discipline and what the gym teaches you is that if you can continue to stay disciplined over a long period of time, you'll achieve results. And it's the same thing in the business world. That's why, I still go to the gym to this day. And that's why when carrying on the story, I decided to become a personal trainer when I was 18. So I got certified in personal training. And then what ended up happening was I got my first job at Lifetime Fitness. I worked there. And then I ended up finding a place that was like a boutique personal training facility. It was also where rich people would take like their kids to get better at sports. And that's where I trained. So I would train like the high school athletes, and I would train the, rich moms and dads, and they would be showing up in their Bentleys and tell me about their trips to the Maldives. And I'm like, what do these people do for a living? I knew they lived in the gated communities, and I was working my butt off. I had a full book of clients. I was working, I had 5 a.m. clients. I'd train all the way until like noon, 1 o'clock, take a break, come back at 4 o'clock, train till 9 o'clock at night. That was my schedule every day. So I was working 70, 80 hours a week.
Insane.
And I was making, I was 19, 20, 21 years old, making 75, 85K a year. And I was like doing better than a lot of these government workers around here. But I'm like, I ain't making the money these people are making driving Bentleys.
Or most kids your age.
Yeah.
But then you see what real money is.
Mm-hmm.
And I know all these stories because we spend a lot of time personal. We're friends, right? So I've heard a lot of this, and I'm glad that you're sharing it. And that's why I'm taking a little bit more time to talk about your background than I normally do with my guests, because it's crazy how you grew up, how you got these jobs, and you like, I've been through it too, right? I used to wash cars and fucking hated that. So you have these jobs that you hate, and then you end up seeing these clients that come in, and they're driving all these exotic, expensive cars, and you're like, what do you do? So I normally, right around this point, I ask, how did you find real estate? How did you get into it? And this is a perfect segue into that.
Yeah.
How did you find real estate, bro?
Yeah. My personal training clients actually became like my first mentors, because I would ask them, what do you do for a living? And shockingly, none of them had 9-to-5 W-2 jobs. Like none of these people work jobs and they make all this money. So what do rich people do? They own businesses and they do real estate. That was the common denominator. And I was like, I don't have a great startup idea, but maybe I can figure out this real estate thing. And so it was a seed that was planted. And I had a mentor named John Fitchett. He was the CEO of Quiznos Subs back in its heyday. And he kind of took me under his wing and showed me, sales, entrepreneurship. And I worked with him for 3 years after I finished personal training. I'll keep the story short, but he gave me kind of like the business chops in order to go out and feel confident enough to start, doing real estate on my own, even though I felt flat on my face when I originally started.
So how did you get into wholesaling real estate? Like, how did you find that niche? Because it's a niche. Mm-hmm. Wholesaling real estate is a niche within the real estate space. How did you find that niche, and how did you get started in that?
Great question. So I knew I needed to get out of my hometown in Northern Virginia. So I packed up my Mazda 3 and with a bunch of trash bags full of clothes, and I drove down to Austin, Texas. Didn't know anybody, had no job, no connections. I only had $5,000 to my name. I was running out of money quick. And I was like, I need to start a new life for myself. And I don't want to answer to a boss. I want to start my own business. I never did good taking orders in my life. And I was like, I'm going to make this entrepreneurship thing work so I can call the shots. So real estate I was like, I need to hone in on this. But I was like, I don't have money. I don't have a license. I've got baby credit. Like, how am I going to buy a house? I don't know how this is really going to come together. And so I came across real estate wholesaling, and they're like, you don't need a license. You don't need money. You don't need credit. I was like, well, shit, I'm qualified. And so that was how I originally started. Was I got on YouTube University and started, educating myself.
YouTube University.
I got my PhD.
So, dude, look, often I ask, what were your struggles? Because at this point, this was your first business technically that you started, right? Mm-hmm. What were your struggles? Did you find anything easy about it?
Not at all, because being the first business and, seeing real estate wholesaling, I'm like, is this fake? Are these people all scam artists that are, posting these videos online? Like, am I just like being a complete idiot following all this? So I had like all these like, doubts in the beginning. And I didn't really have like any entrepreneurship skills at all. So I struggled terribly. It took me 104 appointments to get my first deal. I was terrible.
How much time?
Every bit of time I had. So here's what I would do. I would handwrite yellow letters on my kitchen table until my hand cramped up and I couldn't stay awake anymore. And I would stuff all the envelopes and send them out and hopefully get a couple calls. Then I would do the same thing. Every night I would go out and I'll put bandit signs out every single night. And then I would get calls and I would drive all over Texas because that's while I was in Austin. So I'd drive all over Texas in my Mazda 3 that had no AC, and I, middle of the summer in Austin. And I just had back surgery, so I had a big hole in my back at the time too. So it was like getting infected. It was terrible. And I was getting kicked out of every house. I'd walk these properties. Hey, Mr. Seller, I'm here to buy your house. And I had no experience.
But you already had a little bit of sales experience.
Yeah, but I didn't know how to comp very well. And I thought I had sales experience, but I'll tell you where my real sales experience came in here in a few minutes. But I was, on appointment like 75, getting my 75th no. And I remember my back was hurting. I was coming back and I had all these limiting beliefs coming to my mind. And I was like, man, maybe I'm not cut out for this. Maybe these people really are scam artists. Maybe they can do it and I can't do it. All the little bitch voices.
Talk about persistence,
came into my mind. And it was this one defining moment. Like I thought about quitting. And I had sunken cost fallacy. Do you know what sunken cost fallacy is?
No.
When you go so far down a road, you spend so much money, time, or energy that it's like, I got to complete it now. Like I have to. So I had sunken cost fallacy. I put so much into this like wholesaling thing that if it didn't work out, it was going to be devastating. So I was like, all right, well, here's the deal. Either I'm going to get rich or die trying. It was the get rich or die trying. And I was serious. I was like, I'll fucking go homeless. I'll write bandit signs on the back of cardboard, living out the back of the grocery store. I don't give a shit. We're going to make it happen. So that moment, I was like, all right, let's go. So I had to get a job to bridge the gap. And I think that this is where a lot of entrepreneurs don't humble themselves, is they're having a job. There's absolutely nothing wrong with it. I took a sales job in order to keep this dream alive. So I went and got a job at Indeed.com. Now, I did it with the sole intention that I'm going into this job to crush it, so I don't have to take shit from an employer, and I can become my own self-sufficient entrepreneur. That was the only reason I'm going to take a job. So I was like, the faster I can go into this sales job and make money, faster I can get out and do my own thing. So I went in and I started that sales job. I was almost late on rent because I only had $800 and my rent was $1,100. And I went from that point to rookie of the year, top of the leaderboard at Indeed, started making $250K a year right out the gate. So that enabled me to, at night and on the weekends, work on my real estate business. And I took all the extra money that I had to invest in mentors, education, marketing. I still lived in my 1-bedroom apartment. I didn't do anything fancy. I ate out of a crock pot and ate Chipotle. And I shopped at Walmart. And I kept my Mazda 3. And I did that for 2.5, 3 years until I was able to get out and continue on
and do your real estate business without
full-time.
Yeah, full time without stressing over money.
Yeah.
So, dude, what has been like? Was last year your biggest year in real estate?
Last year I was not. 2023 was. We did like 5.9 million.
5.9 million.
2024, I relocated my office from Austin, Texas, out here to Scottsdale,
That's
Arizona. Right. So I intentionally, basically,
you knew your revenue was going to dip because of the transition,
and I was fine with that. Yeah. But this year, now that it's set up, this will be by far our best year.
Do you have? I'm all about targets. Do you have targets set up for your real estate business this year?
Yeah, 12 million.
12 million. Beautiful. Beautiful. Do you want to share any other businesses that you're focused on this year that you're working on scaling?
Yeah. So my real estate business, that's my baby,
Like collections.
Correct. That's my bread and butter. I'll always be growing and doing that. But outside of that, I'm fortunate I can start other business because I have a great team. Mm-hmm. So I own our, an education company, coaching and education company. So let's
talk about that.
Talk about that. Yeah.
Yeah. Because I want to give you a shout out. Nick was one of my mentors. He taught me the digital marketing game, the PPC game. Like I was always intimidated by Google ads. I would not run them, even though Nick taught me. I just don't like it. It's just something I don't like doing, but I understand it. And I know enough to know if I do hire somebody to run them for me, that they're not going to play me for a fool because I know what's back there. Mm-hmm. I've seen the engine, I know what's under the hood. Mm-hmm. So I want to give you a huge shout out, and your community, the Figure Cartel community with Nick's real estate wholesale coaching program, his mentorship. I've met a lot of great people, and I'm humble enough to say that I don't know everything. So I've learned a lot of stuff from Nick and some stuff from even his community. So I just want to give you a shout out, and I put my name behind your coaching program, bro. If anybody's interested, talk about like what the program includes and stuff like that, bro. Because these are people that, maybe you're already wholesaling and you want to get to the 7-figure, 6-figure, 7 figures, or you want to get into wholesaling. Like you think that it was a scam, or you're like, can I do it? You guys can do it, bro. Like anybody can do it. So talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. It means a lot. Yeah, I mean, I told you my story. I had nothing coming into this, and I know it's hindsight's always 20/20. It's like if I knew what I knew now and I could go back, like how much further along would I be? Mentorship is the only way to shortcut that. A wise man learns from his mistakes. A brilliant man will learn from another man. So mentorship is the only way you can really compress down decades into days or months, right? So what I've done is, I had a lot of people asking me questions. I was like, all right, we're going to start a little community. And then it grew because people were getting results, and it grew and it grew and it grew. So what we do, we have the 7-figure cartel. That's designed for people to go from 0 to 7 figures to make their first million. So if you haven't made your first million yet, we're taking you all the way through the process from, setting up your business, like your entity, right? To running your first marketing, to knowing how to establish your credit, all the basics. Now, how to run marketing properly, how to do sales and talk to sellers and make offers and underwrite properties anywhere in the country. And most importantly, like how to sell these deals and cash checks and get deposits and do that on autopilot and then grow it. So you don't have to be in the business. You can work on the business. So I'm very proud, like 1 out of every 4 people that come through our program self-report doing over $1 million. That's
right.
And I mean, the rest of them are still doing great. People that don't apply themselves, just like anything, you don't apply yourself, you don't get results.
Yeah, I'm in the 8-figure, so that's a step above. That's like you already know what you're doing. You just need help scaling it bigger and running it better, more effectively, more efficiently. And I can tell you guys right there, like I've seen guys go from $1 million to $3 million, like literally within a year. So mentorships, everybody knows. If you guys follow me, I'm a 10X business coach. I'm a 10X business advisor. And I learned from Grant Cardone, Brandon Dawson, and people like Nick.
Yeah.
Like you guys rock and roll if you're ready. What else you got going on in business this year?
Yeah, this year, I mean, it's still early to talk about some things, but I'm purchasing another education company, and then I'm also purchasing a service company as well in Colorado. Awesome, so my main goal is to continue to grow my real estate. But, if you look at all the people that are doing, hundreds of millions, billions of dollars, it's through private equity and mergers and acquisitions.
That's right.
Yeah,
that's right. So that's what I'm working on too. So, all right, bro, how can people find you? How can people reach out to you if they want to work with you?
Yeah, I mean, I'm pretty accessible online. Instagram is probably the best way. I'm on there. I answer all my own DMs and things like that. So
for now,
but I like interacting with everybody and helping everybody out. So reach out to me. It's just my name, Nick Perry, REI. So Nick Perry, REI. And then I'm on all the other social channels too. We're pushing out a lot of content on YouTube, some longer form stuff if you want to learn free information and just get deep into it and get to know a little bit about what we do.
So if somebody was interested in coaching with you, they can just DM you?
Yeah, or just on my Instagram, you can go to 7figurecartel.com, book a call with my team, see if it's a good fit, and then they'll get you rocking and rolling.
Bro, I'm super proud of you, man. I'm honored to be called a friend. And you can count on me for anything that you need. So I'm really grateful that you invited me to your home here in Scottsdale. Welcome to Scottsdale. I'm not really from Scottsdale, but I have a house here, so welcome to Scottsdale. And I'm super excited for you this year, bro. I know you're gonna crush it. I want to check back with you either at the end of this year or beginning of next year, just to hold you accountable.
Hold me accountable. Hold me accountable.
Just to make sure that
and you're internet hold me accountable too. I want you guys to hold me accountable.
That's right.
Yeah.
So I'm super excited for you, bro, and I'm proud of you, man. And let's just keep fucking crushing it. That's what us alphas do. So we crush it. So we'll see you guys. Hey, if you like the content, if you guys want to see Nick back in the next 12 months, I need you to comment. Make sure you subscribe and like first, and then comment. And then make sure that you reach out to Nick if you guys just want to connect and ask him some questions. Like he said, he loves to interact. And I'll see you guys next time on Mondays with Mike.
Let's go.